Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I wanted to make this video to share what our experience was like coming non-command sponsor to Korea. So we are an Air Force family, so everything I share here is going to be what our experience was like coming to an Air Force base. So non-command sponsored means that the military is not paying for your move. It is not a regular move where they will come and pack you out and cover everything. So we had to store all of our belongings in a storage unit at our losing base, and we brought in our suitcases what we absolutely needed right away. And then you are allowed for a non-command sponsored move, the military member can either choose to have unaccompanied baggage or 10% of household goods. We opted for the 10%, and that amount is based off of your rank. So you'll get 10% of whatever your rank weight limit is. You get 10% of that for the household goods. The difference is that unaccompanied baggage is a set 500 pounds. It does arrive faster because they ship that by air, whereas the 10% of household goods comes by boat. So we're not expecting to receive any of our things for at least like another month and a half, 2 months. It takes a while. So that's just personal preference. We chose to go that route just so we could ship some bigger items. Our kids are bigger, so we wanted more of their outdoor things, like, and just household stuff to have. I couldn't let go of my Christmas stuff, so I needed to have that. So the first thing that you'll want to do is, if you are making the plunge to do a non-sponsored move, is you want to make sure you get your passports. The process for us was fairly quick. My husband and I already had ours, and then we just had to get the books for our kids. They already had their passport cards, so their books came in, maybe it took like 3 weeks, if that. It was a very quick process. If you don't have a passport, of course you want to allot yourself more time. And forgive me if I'm looking over to the side. I've made notes to stay on track. The next thing is that what my husband did is, we knew that we wanted to try to fly together. Even though our kids are amazing travelers and they're older, and for sure I could have handled it on my own, I didn't want to. So we wanted to arrive together so that we could also quarantine together, and that's something I'll touch on a little bit later. So for him to be able to fly with us, he had to apply for circuitous travel, and that was approved fairly quickly. And so what that means is that allows us to fly commercially together, and then he is reimbursed his plane ticket. Again, with it being a non-sponsored move, they're not going to reimburse us for the kids and I's plane tickets, and or, you know, passport fees or lodging fees, anything that is related to myself and our kids. They're not going to cover that. We actually did not even book our plane tickets until maybe about 3 weeks before the date we knew we were going to leave. And we flew Delta, and we called Delta well ahead of time to ask them when would be the best time to book. And they said with how empty the planes have been, especially coming to Korea, we didn't really need to worry about booking so far in advance. So if you do fly Delta, I would highly recommend that you call the military line to book your tickets. We were able to get a significant discount on my ticket and my husband's ticket, the kids' prices were a set price, but we were able to get a significant discount on there. And you're also, if you're flying military, and this does apply for non-sponsored families as well, as long as you're with the military member, from what I know, maybe it's different, but you are allowed a crazy amount of baggage through Delta. We did not even come near our baggage allowance, but you are allowed, and this is as of February 2021, so fairly recent. You are allowed 5 bags per person, 5 checked bags per person, 100 pounds each. So that is an insane amount of luggage should you choose to utilize all of that. We did not come close to that, but it was nice having that buffer and knowing that we could cram our suitcases with all the things that we needed. On that same note, keep in mind that when you arrive, if you are coming to Osan, which is where we're at, you will not have access to an elevator in your quarantine lodging. So keep that in mind, that, you will have to carry all your bags up and down stairs. And I'll touch on the quarantine in just a minute. So after you, if you make the decision that you want to fly together and you do the circuitous travel, you book your tickets. Even before that, you want to let my husband let his gaining command know that he was bringing us all non-sponsored, just so they were aware, especially with the pandemic still ongoing. You do want to give them the heads up. They do need to be in the know. And they also have here a COVID command that needs to be tracking your arrival. So my husband sent them directly our travel itinerary and how many of us were coming, all of that stuff, so that they could be aware of it. Let's see. If the service member gets a sponsor ahead of time, which hopefully they should have, my husband thankfully did, they can set up your post office box for you before you get here. And that was really nice because we were able to mail ourselves some things that we wanted to have right away. And thankfully we were able to, all of that stuff was already here once we got out of quarantine. So that was really nice. So now getting into all the steps for that are involved coming in the times of the pandemic. So one of the new regulations is that you have to have a negative COVID test prior to arriving here. And so that test has to be the test has to be within 72 hours of your international flight. So we had we had 2 flights total. The first flight got us to Seattle, and then Seattle we flew straight to Incheon. And I would highly recommend that route because while it's a very long flight, it was about a little over 12 hours. It's much better than having a whole bunch of layovers and stops, in my opinion. Maybe if you have younger kids, you don't want to go that route, but for us, it worked out very well. So your negative test has to be within 72 hours of your international flight. So whatever time that leaves, that has to be 72 hours. It does have to say on your test, specifically, it has to be a PCR test. So my husband was able to get us tested at our losing base the day before we flew out, and we were able to get the results very quickly. And it wasn't the same as a rapid test, although we got the results very quickly. We just got them quicker because we were PCSing, and so they were able to get it to us quicker. And so that worked out for us. Then once you arrive, you've made it through all the preparations and all that. You've done, your pre-move steps. once you arrive at Incheon Airport, you go through, there were a bunch of checkpoints that we had to go through, where they check your passports, they check the forms that you had to fill out on the airplane. They checked your, there's certain quarantine papers you're given to note where you're quarantining. For us, we just put the lodge on base. And so you go through all these checkpoints, and then when you're cleared of all that, there's a separate area that you go and wait, a little military area where you wait for the shuttle to take you from there to the base. So with quarantining, we were not 100% sure where we were going to be quarantining until it was like 2 days before we arrived here. Unfortunately, you are not able to book your quarantine lodging yourself. It has to be someone in leadership. Sponsors may be able to, I'm not 100% sure about that, but you can't do it yourself. So we weren't sure if we were going to be in a TLF, which is the temporary family lodging, temporary lodging facility, or like regular dorms. We weren't sure. And there is a difference, because the TLFs are laid out more family style. You have a little kitchen, you have like a little living room, and whereas the other, it's basically just a basic hotel room. You don't have a full kitchen. So we weren't really sure. Thankfully, we were put in TLF, so we did have a little kitchen, and it worked out. It was very tight space for our family, but it did work out. There was a pull-out couch that our girl slept on. They brought an extra bed for our son to put in the room that my husband and I were in, and then my husband and I had our bed. Now, quarantining was challenging here. Do keep that in mind, that they take it very, very seriously here. So when you quarantine, you are allowed 1 hour outside a day. They have a separate playground area for quarantine families at the TLF. I believe that families in, there's a lodging across the street from TLF that is just the standard hotel style. I believe that families quarantined there are also able to use the playground. I could be wrong on that though, but only one family out at a time at the playground, and you're allowed 1 hour per day. But you do have to wait. You cannot go outside until 36 hours after your arrival here. So keep that in mind. After you get here, the day that you arrive is considered day 0. And then on day 1 of your, that you're here, is when you go and you have your first in-country COVID test. So there is a shuttle that will pick you up outside of lodging, and they take you and that's your first one. You have to have 2 negative tests before you're released from quarantine. The first one is on day 1 and the second is on day 12. Do keep in mind, if you have younger kids, that while the arrival requirements are a little different, I think it's that they don't test kids under 2 or under a certain age. Once you're here in country, any age is tested. So if you have babies, expect that they will be tested. So you have your day 1 test, and then they will not call you if it's negative. So no call is a good thing. So after, if you don't receive a phone call, then you can start counting down when you are able to go outside. So if you don't receive a phone call, just kind of count back to when you arrived, and then 36 hours after that is when you can start having your daily rec time. Then your next one, like I said, is on day 12, And then for us, we were thankful that we had heard varying things of it taking a very long time for some people to get released versus some people got the phone call right away. You do need to wait for a phone call from public health before you are officially released from quarantine. So for us, we were called on day 14, and we got the green light that we were good to go. So once you're released from quarantine, you then have to move. You either have to call the hotel on base that's across the street and see if they have availability. If they don't, they will issue you a non-A letter, and then you have to book a hotel off base. So that was a very easy process for us. The hotel across the street did not have availability, so they have a list of hotels right outside the base, and we just called one of them that had the space that we needed, and they had room, so we booked with them, and they had a shuttle that came and picked us up from base and took us to the hotel. So that was really nice. We didn't have to worry about getting a taxi or anything, and that was free, so very nice. Then once you're officially out of quarantine, you can start the whole post-quarantine process. And so now everything I'm going to share now is pretty standard stuff of what families prior to, sorry about that, families coming prior to COVID had to do. You just now have to wait and do all of this once you're out of quarantine. So the first thing I would recommend doing is have the service member go to a housing brief. They hold those Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. at the housing office, and you do have to go to that. That is mandatory before you sign a lease for an apartment off base. You are able to apartment hunt with realtors before going to the briefing, but you can't sign anything. So I would highly recommend getting that out of the way, so that if you find a place that you really like, you're able to jump on it right away. The next thing is with meeting with realtors, the housing office has a list of approved realtors. There's a lot, and I would highly recommend meeting with more than one. And the reason for that is because every realtor here has different units to show you. And so the first realtor we met with, they didn't really have anything of the criteria that we were looking for. So we went to another one, and he was able to show us something that really fit what we were looking for. So it doesn't hurt to meet with more than one. If you find your dream one on the first one, then that's amazing, and just stick with that. Next is any dependents will need to get a SOFA stamp in their passport. And I did not go with my husband to do this. He did this without us, but he just took all of our passports, and he had to have a copy of his orders. And your SOFA stamp is what basically gives you permission to stay here for the full year of his tour, or of the service member's tour. So when you arrive at Incheon, they will give you a little white slip that says A3 visa on it. And so keep that in your passport, so that when you go to the PAX terminal to get your SOFA stamp, they won't keep that in there, but they'll see it, and then they'll give you your SOFA stamp. So that was really easy. And then the next thing that you'll need to do is he had to go to Pass an ID and get us registered in D-bids. I'm not exactly 100% sure what that is. I just know that's the acronym for it. Apparently it's just so that our cards register correctly, from my understanding, at an overseas location. So that is necessary. And then he'll also, or the service member will also need to get your ration cards. So you have to have a ration card to shop at the commissary, the BX, and the shopette here. So unless you're with the service member, but that was a really easy process as well. My husband was able to go in and get those taken care of right away. So that's all the post-quarantine stuff that you're able to do to kind of, and my husband was able to do all of that within a matter of 2 days. We got out of quarantine on a Tuesday, came into a hotel that same day, and then he had to do a little bit of in-processing Wednesday and Thursday, but even with all that in-processing, he was able to get all those things checked off the list. And then he had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then he started work Monday. So it was a very fast blur once we were out of quarantine, but knowing the steps prior really helped. So that was, you know, there's a lot of to-dos, but it goes by quickly. I have heard that it is important to have your SOFA stamp before going to pass an ID. So that's something to keep in mind, to have that prior to getting Indy bids and your ration card. And then that's pretty much the whole shebang, the whole process. It was, our last month stateside was really a blur, just getting all the last minute details worked out. And then arriving was another blur, but I will say, in spite of everything, having that quarantine time, we weren't really looking forward to it, but it ended up being the nice, just forced slowdown that we needed to just get acclimated, to finally be able to take a breath and just get really excited for what this year has in store for us. So there is a lot of conflicting information out there about coming non-sponsored, but I will say, if you and your family find yourself in the same position as our family, it's definitely something to consider. We received a lot of kickback and flack for it, but I'm so glad that we made the decision to do it anyway. I will try to link down below in the description box 2 Facebook groups that I found that were very helpful in answering questions I had, and it's filled with families who have done the exact same process. And so that is definitely a space for encouragement and factual information. So I will try to link those down below. Hopefully that works out. And that's pretty much it. I hope that you enjoyed this video and found it insightful. If you are going through the same process, to know that it's really not as crazy and difficult as it may seem. It can be pretty scary and overwhelming for sure at times, but it's totally doable. And we are very glad that we made the plunge to do it, just to stay together for a year. So I will have a lot more videos to share in the future of our journey here, of just life here in general, maybe some homeschooling videos. Yeah, so stay tuned.